BingX, a trusted global crypto exchange. Trade spot, futures, or copy top traders easily. Sign up via the link or referral code to get 30 USDT instantly, plus up to 1,500 USDT in bonuses for verification, deposit, and trading.
Madagascar is in a state of flux following a dramatic power shift, as an elite military unit declared its seizure of control on Tuesday. This development follows a tumultuous period marked by weeks of widespread anti-government protests and the unprecedented impeachment of President Andry Rajoelina by the country's parliament. The situation escalated rapidly after President Rajoelina, who claimed in a Facebook Live video on Monday to have gone into hiding amidst alleged assassination attempts, refused to step down. His refusal came despite growing pressure from demonstrators who, over the weekend, secured the crucial backing of the influential CAPSAT military unit. The presidency's initial response on Tuesday was a statement describing the events as an attempted coup d'état, asserting that the President of the Republic remains fully in office and is ensuring the maintenance of constitutional order and national stability. However, President Rajoelina has not been publicly seen in Madagascar for several days. Reports suggest he fled the Indian Ocean island on a French military aircraft late Sunday night, a move that followed CAPSAT's Saturday declaration of its refusal to open fire on protesters. While no official order for the military to shoot civilians had been publicly disclosed, the gendarmerie, a police force operating under the Ministry of Defense, had been responsible for fatalities among demonstrators during the initial stages of the youth-led protests that commenced on September 25. These marches initially ignited in response to severe water and electricity outages but quickly evolved into a broader movement demanding radical political reform and the immediate resignation of the president. The leader of CAPSAT, identified as Colonel Michael Randrianarina, addressed reporters at a government building in the capital, Antananarivo, on Tuesday. He outlined plans for the military to establish a council comprising officers from the army, gendarmerie, and police forces. Furthermore, he announced that a prime minister would be appointed to quickly assemble a civilian government. Colonel Randrianarina elaborated that this council, potentially including senior civilian advisors in due course, would effectively assume the duties of the presidency. He unequivocally stated to Agence France Presse, "We have taken power," shortly after reading a prepared statement. This assertion came mere minutes after the lower house of parliament had voted to impeach President Rajoelina, citing desertion of duty. The official presidency Facebook account, however, denounced the parliamentary session as being devoid of any legal basis. In a move widely seen as an attempt to salvage his position, President Rajoelina had dissolved parliament just hours before the impeachment vote. CAPSAT's intervention represents a precipitous downfall for Rajoelina, a 51-year-old former DJ who himself rose to power in 2009, supported by a military regiment responsible for logistics. That earlier ascent followed widespread street protests against the high cost of living and the dismissal of Rajoelina as mayor of Antananarivo by his predecessor, Marc Ravalomanana. Rajoelina served as president until 2014, returned to power in 2019, and was re-elected in 2023, a victory that was marred by allegations of electoral irregularities. Madagascar, a nation grappling with significant economic challenges, ranks among the world's poorest, with a GDP per capita of only $545 last year, according to World Bank data. Despite its natural resource wealth, including valuable vanilla and precious gems, activists contend that these resources have been subject to exploitation by officials and corrupt business interests. The country's struggle with corruption is further underscored by its low ranking of 140 out of 180 nations in Transparency International's 2024 Corruption Perceptions Index. The United Nations reported that at least 22 individuals lost their lives in the initial days of the protests, with casualties attributed to both security force actions and violence and looting perpetrated by individuals and gangs not associated with the protesters. President Rajoelina's initial denial of any fatalities was later revised to an acknowledgement of 12 deaths, described as looters and vandals. The widespread protests were initially orchestrated by Gen Z Madagascar, a decentralized youth movement that utilized private communication channels like Discord and Signal, while maintaining a public presence on platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. On Saturday, CAPSAT's pivotal announcement that it would not fire on protesters and its call for other military factions to unite marked a turning point. That afternoon, CAPSAT soldiers emerged from their barracks in southern Antananarivo, marching alongside thousands of jubilant protesters towards the symbolically significant 13 May Square, located outside City Hall. The momentum continued on Sunday, with CAPSAT declaring its assumption of control over the military and appointing a new leader for the armed forces. The gendarmerie also aligned itself, acknowledging faults and excesses in its handling of the protests. Further solidifying the shift, General Demosthene Piculas, the head of CAPSAT, was officially installed as the chief of the Army staff during a ceremony at Army headquarters, attended by the Minister of Armed Forces, Minantso Adaramasinjaka Rakatorivalo, who offered his blessing. General Piculas, speaking to journalists after the ceremony, described the recent events in Madagascar as unpredictable and emphasized the Army's commitment to restore calm and peace throughout Madagascar. The Gen Z Madagascar movement expressed jubilation over the coup on Tuesday, posting celebratory messages and videos on their Instagram stories. An 18-year-old activist involved in managing the movement's social media accounts shared their personal happiness, stating, "It's a great day to be alive," and emphasizing that the army was now aligned with the people's wishes. This activist also pointed out the perceived hypocrisy of the president labeling the events a coup, given his own path to power. However, another activist expressed a more